What's cracking, everybody? New video. So today's video is gonna be a wild story. But for me to tell you the story, I need to tell you, it's gonna be a long-winded story in a way, right? I have to tell you a bunch of other stuff that leads up to this individual, and then we'll go into that. So this story, there's actually two white dudes I met in prison that I could rightfully say were fucking nuts, right? One of them, I think, was like that his whole fucking life. That's not the guy I'm going to talk about today. The guy I'm going to talk about today, I want to walk you through his life as I knew it, and then what I heard at the end, right? And like I said in the title of this video, this really is a cautionary tale. This is a glimpse at what prison can do to people. So here we go. I believe it was 1996 in New Folsom B facility. And there was a white guy that he apparently was selling dope, or he was selling something. I don't know if it was weed or dope or whatever it was, but he was selling something to blacks, right? Now that's the white politics. I don't know how that works for them, but I'm just gonna say that's what happened, right? And apparently it was a Crip. Apparently the Crip hadn't paid and he was past the deadline. So this white dude, he was from Sacramento, right? He took it upon himself to walk down to the bottom of the yard where the blacks were at, and he approached the Crip. And he was like, "Hey man, you got my money or not, man? Because you were supposed to pay me, this and this and that. So I want to collect my money." And the Crip got off, boom, 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 and a couple dudes jumped in. They jumped the dude, stomped him out. They sprayed and everything, and then they ran the yard in. New Folsom back then, even though that was a racial incident, not everybody jumped. So to them, they'll be like, "Fuck it, run the yard in, and when it's time for the next yard, run the yard back out, and we'll see." So that's what they did. So this guy got stomped out. There he goes. He got paid. So he's on his way to Ad Sig, right? So they run second yard. And this was before, in 96, when they had the huge riot between the Southerners and the blacks, that's when the CDC changed how many people they would allow out at the time. Before that, which is this time period I'm talking about right now, basically you could see 800, 900 dudes on the yard at a time. Everybody was able to sneak out. You just fucking come out. They crack your door for anything. "Hey, I'm on yard." Boom, and you just sneak out. It was wild back then. So they released the second yard, right? Boom, everybody goes out. And I remember being in the by the tables, and like the whites and the Southern raza are side by side. They intermingle, right there. And the guy in the morning yard that got jumped, one of his homeboys just came out of Ad Sig, and I believe he came out of Ad Sig in between yards, because he was on the yard, and I remember he had shower shoes on. He had his blue pants on. He had a white t-shirt on, but he had shower shoes on, right? And he was telling the other whites, "Hey man, that shit that just happened to my homeboy, that shit's not, we can't let that fly." And they were basically telling him, like, that dude was selling to the blacks. We didn't get nothing out of that. That's his issue, right? And so he was like, "Well, I'm gonna go down there. If anybody wants to come, they can come, but no matter what, I'm going down there." And they were like, "All right, good luck with that." So that dude went down there to go and, figure out why they jumped on his homeboy, right? So he went right back down to the yard, bottom of the yard, to the same area where his homeboy got stomped out a couple hours before. And he might have got a couple words out, but next thing you know, knives came out and he was getting holes punched in him. Okay. So now you have two white dudes from Sacramento. One got stomped out, and the other one got stabbed in one day. So the administration threw us all back in the cell, yard recall, right? Everybody went back to the cell. Now, the first incident, normally, if it would have been anyone else, the yard would have jumped. People would have ran down there to help their people, and this was a look into the caliber of people as far as the whites that yard. They didn't have a good reputation at that time. The ones on C facility, the whites over there, they did, but the ones on B facility didn't have a good reputation, and they were exposing themselves, right? But the common belief at that time was on the second incident, okay, it's on. They can't let that slide. There's no way these dudes are going to let that slide, right? So at 4 a.m, the cops start popping doors. They start releasing the kitchen workers, right? Boom. The blacks stab another white dude. Then they released the next day for something. Boom. The blacks stabbed another white dude. Boom. Like it got to the point where 7 white dudes had been stabbed. Not one black dude had been socked up, slashed, stabbed, jumped. No violence. There was no offensive, eh? There was no offensive on the whites. It was a trip, right? It was like, what the fuck? And I remember myself being a youngster at the time, and a bunch of other youngsters. We went to, the vato that was taking care of business for the raza from Southern California, and we were just like, hey, Holmes, can we just start whacking these dudes too? Because we can't sell no dope around them. We can't. How can we trust these vatos? They're right next to us. They see everything we're doing. And we were told, Charlie, that can't happen. They haven't done anything to us. This is between them and them. But don't let them see what you guys are doing. You guys are doing shit. Don't bury nothing in front of them. Nothing. We can't trust these vatos for shit. Right? And so it was kind of like the weird thing was we were trying to instigate the whites to retaliate. Like, hey, Holmes, you guys are right here, next to us. Like they're coming through here and doing whatever they want, this and that. And it was weird because the whites from Southern California were saying, oh, that's the whites from Northern California. That's their thing. And we're like, what? When did they start doing that? There's not enough whites for them to play North and South. And then the whites from Northern California, like Coco County, was like, well, that's the Sacramento dudes. They always start shit and think they're crazy. They can figure that out on their own. And we're just like, excuses after excuses, right? So the last one they hit was a big old dude, man. They called him for a visit. And he lived in 8 block. 7 and 8 block is in the black area of the yard. He went down and they let him go in, get dressed, come on. As he came out for his visit, boom, stuck him right in his neck. Big ass dude, Big Tony, I think they called him. And after that, they were basically like, all right, everything's cool, don't trip, And it was crazy to see dudes with swastikas all over themselves and lightning bolts all over themselves put their heads down when they saw like Crips coming through, Bloods coming through. And we were looking like, what the fuck? But that's their thing, right? But one day, a white dude, and I'm not going to say what he was a part of, but he was a part of something within the whites that doesn't exist anymore, right? For whatever reason, he approached me. And he was like, hey, can you do me a favor? And I said, what? He said, can you get at who you need to get at and let them know that we're going to do something right now against the blacks, right? I said, look, Holmes, don't get me in the middle of something where they get mad at me for taking them bunk info. And he's like, nah, I'm telling you right now, on my skin, whites like to say, on my skin, it's going to happen. I said, okay. So I went to who was handling business for the Southern, for the raza from Southern California. And I was like, hey, Holmes, real quick, these vatos are going to do something. He said, look, Holmes, don't bring me that bullshit, eh? These vatos have been saying they were going to do something. They got 7 other people whacked and they haven't done shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even want to hear that shit. And I said, no, well, look, this vato's hooked up with this. And he said this. He's stamping it. And then the vato tells me, he goes, well, you know what? I did notice these vatos posted up over here, and there was 4 whites that were posted up in a specific spot right next to the handball court, right? Where I've mentioned before, it would have been a concrete yard for 5 building, but it was a patio, and there was 4 whites right there. 4 on one side and then 1 on this side. So he was like, all right. He goes, I'm going to let the homies know. So I took off. I posted up where I'd be able to watch it, right? Me and a few other fellas, we posted up where we'd be able to watch it now. Before I get into the incident, I want to tell you guys this. There was a white dude in my section, and he was from Sacramento. He was he was what they would usually call like a dirty hair white boy, right? He had that long hair, dirty biker type dude. He wasn't a biker, but we would call dudes that were dirty like that. Like you could tell he didn't wash his clothes a lot. He used to draw. He stuck to himself, right? I know his name, but I don't want to throw his name out there. And he was just quiet, long, dirty red hair, like reddish brown hair. Well, turns out he's the shooter. Back to the yard now. He's the shooter, right? His Sally is the guy that approached me and said, my Sally's going to do this. So the way they had it was the guy from Sacramento was on the little short concrete wall next to the Southern Raza area, and then across the track, right, which is, 12 feet or whatever, there were 4 whites that were sitting on the patio, what would have been the concrete yard, right? So we're looking and we're like, okay, boom, they got a little plan together. Let's see how this plays out. So as we're watching, we see like some Crips they were riders, right? They were walking through crazy, and they were mad dogging all the whites and shit. Like, yeah, we're mobbing through here, what? And I remember me and the guy I was sitting next to were like, hell yeah. If they whack them dudes, they're doing something, right? That'd be a good look for them to hit those guys right now, and they ain't even expecting it. They're acting like we're untouchable, and as we're saying it, they walk past, and we're like, what are they gonna do? Are they gonna get behind them? Chale. They looked and just put their heads down, like let them go, right? And we're like, what the fuck? And then an old man, a non-affiliated black. Meaning he wasn't a Crip or a Blood, man. He was a regular dude. Maybe he was a base head on the streets or just somebody that did something, man. But he wasn't a banger. Here he comes by himself, walking, minding his own business. And the dude from Sacramento came up off that wall he was sitting on and buried a piece in his chest. Boom! Pulled it out, hit him again. Boom! And the 4 whites that were sitting across the track jumped up, jumped on him. And the dude from Sacramento pulled the knife out, took a few steps, threw it over the wall, and walked off so he can get away. Those guys were the bombers. They were going to get caught. But the riders that had passed by, they turned around and saw what was happening, and they ran over there and beat the fucking bark off of those guys, right? And the guy that did the pegada, he got told on. See, because what they would do is they would snatch up everybody in the vicinity and take them down to the program office one by one. They'd interview them. There was another white dude. He was kind of a J-Cat. And he told on the dude from Sacramento. They came back, boom. Cops came out of the program office, came up to the yard, cuffed him up. And I remember they would call, what they would do is when incidents like that happen, they'll say all inmates in 8 block, return to your block. Everybody in 8 block gets up and starts walking. 7 block. 6 block. They do 1 block at a time. And I remember the dude that had approached me that was affiliated with that thing that doesn't exist anymore. They called his building and he got up and he started walking. The blacks jumped on him. And so that was the last time. So the stories about this vato from Sacramento, man. I'm going to say his first initial was E, right? It's easier to tell a story that way. So E, again, E wasn't a gangster. E was a regular dude, man. E was doing his time. I don't even think he had a life sentence. I don't know. He was just a quiet dude. I believe his Sally, the one that wound up getting jumped on and stomped out, I believe he pumped him up to do what he did, right? So he took off. Bam. He wound up going to the shoe. He went to Pelican Bay. Well, he went to Ad Seg, and there was a thing between the Southern Raza and the whites, and he wound up getting involved in that, right? So now he's getting a little violence, a taste of violence under his belt and into his blood, right? From there, he went up to Pelican Bay, and he wound up on D facility. I want to say D4 or D5, right? And he landed in a pod with some of the legends for the whites, right? And then that's where his schooling began. I ran into E later. He had came out of the shoe and he went to B facility in the Bay with us after the riot. And there was a white dude there that was claiming to be something he wasn't. He was claiming to be a legend. And E, now he had a shaved head. Now he had size on him. He'd been working out, busting down, cut up, ripped up. And he went to kill the dude that was claiming to be something he wasn't, claiming to be a legend. Broke his hand in the process, and what he did is he stabbed the knife into the dude here, and then just hammer fisted with his broken hand, trying to just bury it all the way into his body. Cops couldn't find the piece at first because only about this much of the handle was still sticking out of him. Then when we were in Ad Seg together after, the whole riot thing, we all wound up in Ad Seg. He wound up in the cage next to me one day, and I looked at him, and his eyes were completely different. Usually when you see eyes like that, it means one of two things. This dude is turned into a straight killer, or he's turned into a real Christian. This dude was no Christian. E had turned into a bona fide killer. While we were in Ad Seg, he moved somebody in and tried to kill him. The dude needed to be killed, and he tried to kill him. And the dude got away. He got a second cellie. Why they didn't single cell him, who knows? Pelican Bay does what they do. Same thing. He tried to kill him, didn't do it. Guy somehow survived, right? The third guy wasn't so lucky. He killed the dude, made his bones, and became a legend. Eventually, he became a legend, right? Again, you go back to who E was when he came into the system. E was just trying to do his time. But E lost his motherfucking mind along the way. I talked to someone years later, and I don't know if he had been on a transport or what it was, but he also knew E from before. And then he told me when we saw each other, me and this dude, he says, "Hey, remember E?" And I go, "Yeah, that motherfucker turned into a killer, huh?" And he's like, "He left that shit." And I was like, "What? He became a legend?" He goes, "Yeah." And he left. And he goes, and I asked him, "Hey, what the fuck happened to you?" And he said, "I lost my mind for a minute there." Can you imagine that? The dude's probably never going to get out. I don't know. That's not my business. That's his business. But I wanted to tell this story because I think it's important that people understand, we have these people that they think it's cool. They think it's fascinating. They're fascinated by the power. But understand that some people get a taste of that blood and a little bit of power, and they lose who they are, and they become a monster. But at the end, E went back to who he was deep down. Unfortunately, he had killed on his way in, and then he had killed inside. Don't know if he'll ever get out, but I know this is a cautionary tale that people better take heed to. Those of you that are dabbling in the streets and criminality, this could happen to you. What you choose to do is what you choose to do, but understand there's consequences for everything. I'll go ahead and end this one here. Everybody be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them, man. I'm out.